where we read the hadith, one hadith a day, inshallah, and we sort of discuss this in a light where it can bring it down to a level where it's a way of looking at it. How can we apply this in our life, as opposed to just reading it and feeling good about it. The same thing tonight, inshallah. We'll try to do this every night as well, but this time it will be revolving around the Quran. These are two things the Prophet ﷺ said he's left for us, the Quran and the Sunnah. And if we hold on to these two things, it will continue to save us and show us the correct way to go towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not astray to find another path that may lead us to somewhere else. So the Quran, this is sort of like an introduction video of what we're trying to achieve and what we're trying to accomplish through these talks. And again, these talks are a substitute for what we already had at MCC after the Fajr Salat and after the Maghrib Salat, to sort of keep that atmosphere around us. Because in today's time, even though we're separated, we're actually still very connected. And at the same time, in today's world, we can also be very we can be together, but we can be very separated. I mean, you'll see this, people joke about it, 4 or 5 different friends at a table, each looking at their own phone in their own world. A family in one living room, everyone's doing their own thing in their own world. That's an example of people being together, but in actuality, they're separated doing their own thing. So now, because of the same devices, we can actually be very far apart, but be together and still have that feeling of the community, working together and learning together and building from each other. So the Quran is something that we all in Islam, it doesn't matter how weak faith we may be, it doesn't matter how much in the trenches that we are, we just feel this is a sacred book and we give it its due respect. Anybody that tries to perform an act of sacrilege to it, you'll see everyone get upset, regarding of who it is or what their level of practice is. Obviously, some people get very emotional and they let their emotions take over, while others, they try to do what's best for the situation, not just follow their emotions. But nonetheless, it doesn't sit well in anybody's heart that when an act of sacrilege is done towards the Quran. Why? Because we revere it. We say it's the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we hold it in very high respect. Now, the other thing that we want to stay away from is we just think that it's it's a treasure, and we just leave it on top of a shelf. It looks very nice. It's beautiful colors, beautifully written in calligraphy, and it's just there and it looks nice, and because it's there, we get this magical blessing from it. The Quran is much more in depth because of that, and even in the Quran it says that if you try to bring a verse similar to it, you will not be able to, and if you try to bring a book similar to it, you will not be able to. These are verses because the Quran has so many different lights that it can be looked at, lenses that it can be viewed through. For example, just looking and listening to the Quran, it's a beauty in its art. We hear the Qur'an, the reciters of the Quran recite it, and we just sometimes get lost in its beauty of how beautiful it can sound. Another aspect that we can look at it is it's calligraphy. I mean, you'll see some artists, some calligraphers, they make the Quran just come alive from that picture, and just look at it to the point where we actually buy those pictures and put them up because of us liking how it looks, because of its beauty. And then there's science within it, where people study and look deeper into it, and they get another level of fulfillment from the Quran as well. The level of authority that's within the Quran, people have done poems and things in the past, but the level of authority that comes as the Prophet ﷺ would recite the Quran to the Quraysh just put them in this level that, okay, how can he claim that? And that's one of the reasons why they just thought, okay, this is not any kind of words that a person is saying. Nonetheless, it is there. We may not value it if we don't have the right eye or the right lens that we work to view it. We may look at it in another aspect, whatever we treasure. If we're an artist, we may look at it that way. If we love beautiful sounds, we may look at it that way. We'll look at it in different ways, but in reality, the main reason why the Quran was there to bring change into an individual's life. It's there not just as just something to listen to, something to recite, and you will get rewarded for it even if you're just listening to it or reciting it. But to actually have an impact, you have to now look a little deeper into it, and that's when the Quran actually brings the change into us. Like, for example, one of the descriptions that the Prophet ﷺ was given by his own wife Aisha radiallahu anha, that he was a walking Quran. And that just shows that everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him to do, and the level that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the standard that he put him on, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam fulfilled that. And that's why he was on the level that he was, and he was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But that is the same thing; it's our goal as well. And now with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he would go through meditations, this is before he became a prophet. He would go to the cave of Hira, as we all know the story, and he would meditate. He would meditate over and over for so many years, and constantly just observing what's going on within his society, and going back and meditating over this of different reasons, what's the cause, what's the solution. And he did this for so long, and you try to think that, well, what's going on? This is why it's very important that we actually learn and study the seed of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sheikh Taha went over that very wonderfully at MCC. He still continues to have lectures of different stories of the Prophets alaihi wasallam as well. And I'm sure there are other videos. Many other scholars have also gone over the seed as well. If we have not, you can look at it and download a book on your phone, or actually go purchase the book Ar-Rahiq al-Makhtoom, the Sealed Nectar, as well as other seerats as well, where you can sort of see what's going on before the Prophet ﷺ, and then how he lived his life, and then what happened afterwards. Not to digress, so the seed of the Prophet ﷺ, once we understand that, we can sort of see what kind of society he was living in. There was a hierarchy with class, with money, with influence. There was racism with anybody from certain countries. They were born into slavery. There was oppression with bigger clans oppressing the smaller clans. A lot of things was going on. People would just come, and if this guy didn't have a tribe, he would just get robbed in front of his face, and he couldn't do anything about it. Even if a foreigner came in to do trade, somebody robs him or tricks him and takes his money, there's no one there to help him. And you can just see the Prophet ﷺ just contemplating over this. And it's not only just like a Arab thing with the outside thing, or Quraysh against outside. Within themselves, they had internal conflicts. Within the families, within the tribes, and outside of the tribes, there was so much conflict and so much chaos. And the Prophet ﷺ meditating to bring some of that peace, to try to understand how to bring that peace. After meditating for so long, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, you want peace? Here's the way to bring peace. And what was the first word? Iqra, read. So if we don't know where to start, if we don't know where to begin and think like, oh, what should I do? How can I bring change in my life? Just start there. Read. Read, and continuously read as much as you can. And the level of reading, obviously, people complain and say, well, some people just recite the Quran to memorize it. Yes, they do. Some people just, they don't even know what it means. We pray Salat and we don't know what it means. Yes, there's a lot of people that do that. Is it right? No. Should we take it to the next level and study more so that we can know what we're saying? Obviously. But everybody has their life, and everybody goes at their own pace, and that's all that's expected. So if we're going at our own pace, we can slowly at least try to adopt and understand little by little. That's all we need to do. And that's one of the reasons why I'm going to do this. When we actually do that, then we actually look at the Prophet ﷺ. If we look at that, he was given the Quran, one man given the Quran to Jibril alayhi salam, and you see the change that came about. Most of the societies that exist around the world today are not as chaotic, are not as immoral as that time. It was such an immoral society that even other nations like the Persians and the Romans, they didn't want to even try to conquer it or deal with it. They just left them as is. So if the Quran and the Prophet ﷺ was able to bring peace to that land, where it became a place of worship, no more oppression. People were not all of a sudden a person who everybody said he was born into slavery, like Bilal radiallahu anhu, is the one given the adhan, is considered the mu'adhin of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Everybody was given their right, and no one was oppressed in any way. The Quran brought that change with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that's what we have in our hands right now. If we look at all the Anbiya alayhim salam, they're all given something to go to their people and prove to them that they're a prophet. This is otherwise anybody can just say, "Hey, I'm a prophet too." What's the proof? That they actually bring some miracle that everybody understands that this is a miracle, and like, okay, you know what? That's not something any one of us could do or anybody can do. This guy must be speaking some truth to it. So if we look at, for example, Moses, Musa alayhi salam, there were a lot of magic done at that time. The magicians, we know the magicians of Pharaoh, they would do a lot of tricks. He was given something like a staff that turned to a serpent in a way that all the magicians understood that, okay, this is not magic because we know our limits. This is past our limits. If you look at Jesus, Isa alayhi salam, in that time there was a lot of disease and a lot of effort to cure that disease through medicine. However, Isa alayhi salam would do miracles that everybody would think, okay, you know what? This is not medicine. We know the limitations of medicine. This person is going beyond that. That's a miracle. And in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, a lot of people were into poetry in his tribe, and it was such a oralistic society that they wouldn't even write down things. I mean, it took a while for them to actually try to write things down. They would just memorize it and recite it orally, and they just took pride in that. Person would just stand up and start reciting poetry. I mean, nowadays we consider people, they'll freestyle, they'll do other things, but in that time they would do it in their own style. And when the Quran was recited to them, they said, okay, this is not poetry. They accused him of it being poetry, but not because they believed it, because they wanted to censor him. They wanted to shut him down or shut him up so that he does not recite those verses because they understood that it's something different than what they are accustomed to, what they're saying themselves. And it's something with much more potency and much more power and authority behind every verse that's recited. So now with Musa alayhi salam, I mean, his people weren't as fortunate enough to take that serpent along with them and that staff to be like, you know what? Hey, this is the staff of Moses. We can actually still make it into a serpent. We can use this to show people the miracles. They didn't get that. With Isa alayhi salam, the disciples were given miracles, but they weren't able to continuously do the same miracles that Isa alayhi salam did. And again, it was for here and there that everybody has their miracles, but not like Isa alayhi salam. With the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the miracle that he was given, it's given to every single one of us as the followers of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is the Quran and his Sunnah. Now we have these with us. Now what we can do, that same Quran that brought change in that society and in every individual that made that society is the same Quran that brings change into our life as individuals and help us make a society that's progressive and moral. So with the Prophet ﷺ bringing that change, if we look at it and just look at the formula, Quran was brought, the Prophet ﷺ was there, he taught, his companions were students, they learned, slowly change came about. Now we got the Quran, still the same Quran. We got the Hadith, the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, still there. Why is the change not taking place in every individual's life and as a society as a whole? And I'm just talking about even looking at our Muslim countries, not anywhere outside of that. The reason it's the Quran didn't change and the Hadith did not change, then what changed were ourselves. How we're perceiving the Quran could have an impact on whether it's going to affect us or not. It could just be something that, like I said, we listen to, we look at, we hold in high regards, but we're not utilizing it the way where it can actually bring change in our life. And that's what these lectures, inshallah, these little khatiras will be. Well, I'm not going to make it too long. I'm going to try to keep it within 15 minutes, 10-15 minutes, so that it doesn't become something that we just fall asleep to, but at the same time it just becomes something a little bit more something that we can take on to the next day, so that it can help us change every day. And I'm going to be focusing mainly on that. How does this ayah apply to us, and how can we apply it? there are a lot of translations, there are a lot of tafasir there that people can read. And if there's any kind of questions on whatever I say, you're more than free to comment, or bring those questions. We can bring it up in the next lecture, inshallah, if we didn't have time in that one. So, Jazakumullah khairan again for joining us. We are trying to do other programs as well. We're trying to make an interactive program as well, where the community, whoever wants to come through some social media, maybe Zoom or something else, where it can be much more interactive than just comments and a video. So we're trying to do that with the community as well. So please bear with us. And if you have any ideas as well, please reach us out. Myself, Imam at mccsandiego.org, BOD at mccsandiego.org, or contact us at mccsandiego.org. Please give any of your concerns, any of your requests, any of your if you want to volunteer in any way, please share that with us. Jazakallah khairan. We're still a community. We still need your support. We still, whether just the building is closed down, doesn't mean that we're not still together. Well, all we have to do is just use these kinds of instances and these situations and the tools that we have. Like right now, I can be in every person's house and everybody can be conversing back with me. So it's there, alhamdulillah. We're not completely separated. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His blessings upon us, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us for all of our shortcomings. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.